Hi guys, this is Chapter 5, Lesson 4's video, but the first thing I'd like you to do is open up to page 373, and I'm going to take just a few minutes to make sure you are on the right track with these last 5 problems. So you should have done these together in class, but I want to make sure that you understand how to do it. The first thing you want to do is recognize that 22 and 7 are the two terms that could be added together if they were grouped together. But right now they're not even near each other. So what could we do to get 22 closer to 7? Well, we could flip-flop 19b and 22. And by changing the order, that's the commutative property. Then the next thing we can do is we can change the grouping, and we can actually put parentheses around the like terms. And notice that 19b, 22, 7, 19b, 22, 7, the order didn't change. What changed was their grouping or their friendship. Friendships are associative, so that's the associative property. And the last term is simply, or the last step is simply adding like terms. So that's what your work should look like for that one. Okay, let's go down to 24. 24 is a little trickier because you might miss the operations because there's not any technical symbols there, but this is really saying 11 times s times 4. Well, 11 and 4 can be multiplied together if they are near each other. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to flip-flop the order of 11 times s and write it as s times 11. That's commutative property. The next step is we're going to group those together, and technically you wouldn't even need this step because these parentheses really aren't a grouping. They just were kind of setting 4 apart from multiplying by s. So at this point you could just go s times 44. And in algebra it's pretty well known that the coefficient should always be written in front of the variable. So we would flip this around and write 44s. Okay. And the last one I want you to check is 26. 26 looks pretty complicated, so we kind of look to the very middle because we want to do parentheses first. So if you look inside here, this is the very first grouping symbol. So we're going to do 5 times 7 is 35 times 4. And then inside of this parenthesis we can do that. So 9 plus 31 plus 5 is 45. Now inside of this parenthesis we can multiply. So 35 times 4 is 140 times 45. And then you simply multiply that, which is 6,300. So I just wanted to make sure that you had a chance to check those. I'm not going to go through all the steps here, but this one should be 23 plus 6m when it's simplified. And this one should be 70y. Okay, turn the page please. And today we're going to start talking about the distributive property. And you should have heard of this before. In 6th grade, you've done this before. So let's look at the real world link. It says Jordan buys 3 notebooks that cost $5 each. He also buys 3 packages of pens for $6 each. Write an expression that shows the cost of the 3 notebooks added to the cost of the 3 pens. Well, we're buying 3 notebooks at $5 each and 3 packages of pens for $6 each, so we're filling that in. And write an expression that shows 3 times the cost of 1 notebook and 1 pack of pens. So if we just added up 1 notebook and 1 pen, we'd be spending $11 on just 1 of those. But since we're buying 3 of all of those, it could be the same as multiplying by 3. So let's evaluate both expressions. So up here, order of operations, 3 times 5 is 15. plus 3 times 6 is 18. That equals $33. Let's evaluate this one. Using order of operations, you have to add, because these are in parentheses first. 5 plus 6 is 11. 11 times 3 is 33. So what do you notice? We notice that both expressions are equal. Okay, number 4. Suppose Jordan buys 5 notebooks that cost $3 each and 5 packages of pens that cost $1 each. Circle the expressions that represent Jordan's total purchases. Okay, so as I look at this, I like this idea first. I'm going to do 1 notebook and 1 package of pens added up, and then I'm buying 5 of them. So that would work. And which other expression is the same as this? Well, I see the difference here between these two is this one has an addition sign in the middle, and this one has just all multiplication. So here's 5 times the price of a notebook plus 5 times the price of pens, so it would be this one. All right, turn the page. This idea was introducing the concept of the distributive property. The distributive property states that to multiply a sum or a difference, so above sum we want to remember that that's an addition problem, or a difference, that's a subtraction problem. To multiply a sum or a difference by a number, you multiply each term inside the parentheses by the number outside. So whenever I teach this, I always ask kids to draw these arrows to help understand what's going on. So we're saying A times B plus A times C. It's very important that you realize that the two terms are then added together because of this symbol. If we're subtracting, it would be A times B minus A times C. Okay, using numbers, draw your arrows here. It would mean 4 times 6 plus 4 times 2. Now, if you look at the name distributive property, if you think about the root word distribute, to distribute something means to pass it out. And I often think about like maybe distributing food at a food pantry. People come in, and this is you, and you are giving out food to every person that comes into the store or into the pantry. And usually with a food pantry, you're giving out the same amount every time. So you're giving out 1 bag, 1 bag, 1 bag. So if you think about this, this looks like we're actually passing something out. Okay, let's go down to the bottom, and can you please, I'll do the first one with you, but this is what I'd like to see. I'd like to see that you're drawing the arrows. We first do 5 times negative 9, so a positive times a negative is a negative. I bring down the plus. 5 times 11 is 55. And then we add them together. So the positive team and the negative team are going to war. So they're going to battle and fight each other off. And the positive team is going to win by 10. Okay, so please pause the video and do B and C, and then continue. Okay, top of the next page is where we're really going to use the distributive property the most, and it's with an algebraic expression. So inside parentheses, this is algebraic because there's a letter and at least one operation. And I want you to get in the habit. Please draw the arrows. This means 4 times x, which is 4x. We bring the plus down, and then it's 4 times 7. Now at this point, 4x plus 28 is completely simplified because there are no like terms to add. We cannot add 4x and 28 together because they both don't have an x. Take a look at example 2. Draw your arrows. 6 times p is 6p. We bring down the subtraction, and now we do 6 times 5 to get 30. Okay, up here at this problem, can you please write what I'm writing? Some students like to think about p minus 5 as p plus negative 5. Hopefully you remember from integers that these two expressions are exactly the same, because when we subtract, we add the opposite. And they like this a little better because then they don't have to worry about this symbol. So watch what we would do. 6 times p is 6p, plus 6 times negative 5 is negative 30. And notice they get the exact same solution here. Okay, so this is a little bit more helpful when we get to a problem like this. So I would suggest that when you have a problem that has a subtraction, you get in the habit of writing it as adding the opposite. So instead of minus 8, let's write plus negative 8. And the reason it's so helpful in this case is because what we're multiplying by is a negative. So you don't want to get confused about this symbol here. And if it's written like this, it's a little bit easier. So we do negative 2 times x is negative 2x, plus negative 2 times negative 8 is positive 16. Okay. Take a minute just to look through example 5 and 6. Draw your arrows and look at where they got their solutions from. Number 6, we're multiplying by a fraction, so 1/3 times x is 1/3 x. And if we add the opposite, this is saying 1/3 times negative 6. Well, if you have trouble with that, remember, looks like this. 1/3 times negative 6, we're just multiplying these fractions, and you should be able to see you can cross reduce. The 3 becomes a 1, the negative 6 becomes a negative 2, and that's where we get this answer. Okay, please pause the video, and I'd like you to do all 4 of these problems. I will check those first thing tomorrow to see if you're on the right track, and then continue. Okay, before we move on, I'd like you to look at F. Make sure you did this correctly. The first thing we want to do with y minus 10 is change it to adding the opposite. So now when we multiply, negative 3 times y is negative 3y, plus negative 3 times negative 10 is positive 30. So if you did not get that correct, please take a minute to write this correctly, and you might want to relook at G if you didn't do that correctly with adding the opposite. Okay, turn the page. Okay, how can the distributive property help us to do some things mentally? Mr. Ito needs to buy batting helmets for his baseball team. The helmets he plans to buy are $19.95 each. Find the total cost he needs to buy 9 batting helmets for the team. Well, multiplying something by $19.95 in our head could be a little tricky. So they're suggesting that you think about $19.95 as $20 minus 5 cents. So if we need 9 helmets that cost $19.95, we're really going to do 9 times this expression, because 20 minus 5 cents is the same as $19.95. Well, how does this help us? Well, hopefully mentally you could do 9 times 20, because 9 times 2 is 18. So 9 times 20, you're just going to add a 0 to 18. minus, all right, same thing here, 9 times 5 is 45, but since the decimal is moved 2 places to the left, we have to take 45 and move the decimal 2 places to the left, and that's 45 cents. So when you subtract those, you get this. Okay? So let's try this one. A sports club rents dirt bikes for $37.50. Find the total cost for the club to rent 250 bikes. I'm sorry, 200 bikes. So we have 200. And how could we write $37.50 in kind of an easier way? Okay, well, we could do a couple things. We could do 38 minus 50 cents. But 38 times 20 is not real easy to do in our head. Could we do this? 40 minus 250? Because 40 minus 250 is 37.50. Now let's distribute. 20 times 40. We'll just do the numbers first. 2 times 4 is 8. And then we've got 2 zeros, so that's 800. Minus 20 times 250. Well, what's 20 times 2? That would be 40. And then 20 times the 50 cents, that's a half, so half of 20 is 10. So we have our 40 plus our 10 is going to be 50. So this is going to come out to be $750. Okay, here's what you need to do. Please do it the guided practice. I want you to do 1 through 3. I'm not going to have you do number 4 right now because it's a little bit tricky. And you should be all set for class then. Thank you.